Kate Schouten joins us today to get really real and shares her journey with grief and how that's affected her and moved her towards such a wonderful counseling practice. Well, good morning, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us in another episode of Therapy Talks. Kate is someone that I truly admire, that I've met a few years ago, and was one of that big steps for me in my towards working in private practice. So I thought it'd be so wonderful if Kate could come today and maybe share some of her professional and personal experiences that have guided her and changed the way that she's experienced mental health, both personally and professionally.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you're okay, I would love to maybe step back into some of your personal experiences that maybe have shaped you over the last few years, that maybe have even just driven home some of these values that you hold.
Yeah, definitely. So about 2 years ago, we lost an important person in our family to I guess, infection, I guess you could say. My brother-in-law, he got really sick with strep throat and just wasn't treated effectively, and then the strep throat turned into a more serious sort of infection, and he passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly. And so I guess when somebody passes away and it's over a longer period of time, you have time to prepare in a way of what that's going to look like and how that's going to affect the people involved. But when it's sudden, nobody can really ever prepare you for the sudden loss of anyone that you deeply care about. So when that happened, it just completely and utterly shook our family. And he left behind my sister and a young son. He was only 2.5 at the time. And so just watching a little boy lose his father, and they lived next door to us too. So we we were, my therapist calls it ground zero. We weren't actually even ever able to step away from the pain and sorrow of all of it, because we were living it day in day out, seeing my nephew every day, seeing the hurt that my sister was going through. And it just it was really hard for me. It was really hard for everyone in our family, but for me, I obviously care for people. That's why I got into this line of work. And so watching somebody struggle, and then also just knowing what Josh missed out on. His son was only 2.5 when he passed away. So just knowing that he's not going to be there for all the really big moments for his son's life, it's just really hard to stomach that reality. And so yeah, it hit me hard. I was able to get through the day-to-day stuff still, and still
Mhm.
well, Haley stepped in a lot at that time, in the business sense, and really stepped up and helped out with that, the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, it threw me for a loop. I'm definitely feel now that it's been 2 years, we're starting to come out of the fog. I think grief, again, I don't think anyone can really prepare you for what grief actually is. You can read about it, you can learn about it, but until you're living it, it's a wild beast. And I was really shocked at some of the things that it could do to a person, and then to also a family unit as a whole, the dynamic of the family. Um, but yeah, there's been a lot of studies that link it directly to PTSD symptoms, and I felt that I mind you, I have had two children in that time too, so my hormones were always fluctuating. But yeah, the grief really, it hit me in a way physically that I didn't know was a thing. With not being able to be in loud settings, or bright lights, or overstimulation. I got really overwhelmed really quickly by activity or noises, or specifically, and having 3 children, and I watched my nephew quite a bit in the first couple years. So this was really unfortunate, but the sound of a dropping toy was my biggest trigger. And when you have 4 kids, there's always the sound of a dropping toy. So it was I would just get so yeah, overwhelmed by the noises and stuff. So fast forward through all the like healing and all the work we like all had to do to like get through it, that like has become the area, I guess, where I feel the most knowledgeable about from like I because it was happening to me in my body. I was like, well, I have to figure this out. So I just read about it, and I would read studies and books and articles and journals, and I was trying to make sense of it so I could make sense of like what was going on for me. So now I feel like I know all the like literature about it, but I also know like the lived personal experience. So I've actually had like a couple clients since who are dealing with grief, and I just feel like it's my wheelhouse now. And when it first happened, I had reached out to my therapist, and he was like, this is going to sound really insensitive, but maybe you can like channel your grief and become a really great grief therapist one day. And I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Like, that's not really what I was thinking about at the time, but now I just feel really comfortable in that area, and I feel like I can help. And when I do get back into seeing clients more regularly once the kids are older, I think that is my niche now. So it is funny how a life event can like shape your career too, because that would have been an area I would have avoided like the plague before.
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely think like the lived experience helps with being able to like understand the different parts of grief and how it affects people and how it can show up and the things that people don't talk about. And yeah, so I am excited to get into that side of things once I am back counseling more and seeing clients.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause you took all of that lived experience and like everything that it taught you, and you were able to channel it and have it be that niche, and it really changed your perspective on the type of counseling that you wanted in to do. And I saw so much strength from you during that time to continue to move forward and to receive your own support, but still be there for your clients as well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it was a strange 2 years.
Mhm. What would you say are some great ideas or tips or suggestions around like managing grief?
Don't do it alone. um, I think the tendency when you're feeling that upset or like it's like I don't even think they've invented a word yet to describe like the like deep sorrow you feel in your soul of like longing for someone who you can't bring back. Like don't do that part alone. Like it's really easy to want to just go curl up in your bed and just like shut out the world, but if you can like find people who care about you, let them
Mhm.
help, and like seek out services like counseling or different types of therapy that can be helpful. Like maybe not right away. There's like that bit of period of shock, and you need like that downtime to just kind of process. But once you are at a place where you need to start healing, like reach out and get the help that is
Mhm.
out there, because it is out there, and there are some really great people out there that are able to help. And yeah, asking for help, I guess, would be a
Mhm.
big one. Letting people help. I had
Mhm.
so many people that are like, "Can I take your kids?" And I'd be like, "No." And then it would have just been really helpful if I had like a day where someone just had taken the kids.
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
yeah,
Mhm.
and that's something I think I've always struggled with, is letting people help, but especially in those times, I think it's important to lean on the people that want to help you.
Mhm. Definitely. So like asking for help, accepting that help, and just understanding that you don't have to be alone in that experience, and normalizing such a normal thing such as grief.
Mhm. Yeah, go to like the support groups. Like it was also really bad timing. He had passed away, and then the next week COVID kind of like took over the world, so we were like forced to isolate, which
Mhm.
was a blessing and a curse, I guess, at the same time, because although like people couldn't come visit and my sister wasn't ready for visitors, she didn't have to have an excuse. There was
Mhm.
a global excuse. Um, but then it got to the point where she wanted to see people and couldn't, so, or wanted to go to like a yoga class and couldn't. So I guess our experience, just the timing of it was a little bit different. Like, I think it would have been really helpful for her to like get out and exercise, or like go to like a restaurant, or have some like social experiences too. Um, yeah, just like being really present, I guess, and mindful of like the people around you that are able to help.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Was there anything else that you wanted to share about your grief experience or the suggestions that you have around grief?
Hmm. Um, I guess you get to a point, and I hope I can frame this properly, where if you're like a people pleaser, or like have tendencies like that in the beginning, or like before something like this happens, it really gives you perspective on like what is important, and how to set boundaries, and how to say no, and like reserve some of like your tank for yourself, so that you're not just giving all the time.
Mhm.
So in a roundabout way, it taught me how to put myself first sometimes, and be able to say no to friends or plans, or cancel last minute, even though that like is really hard for me. But like, just give myself like a chance to take a breath and like heal, and put me and my kids first, and my
Mhm.
husband first, and my family first. So yeah, I don't know if that's like a tip or suggestion. I guess it's just like
Mhm.
the things people don't talk about when you are going through like a grief experience. Is like you get to a point where, yeah, your perspective is just like, you know what is important, and you start to like act on those things, rather than just trying to spread yourself too thin, or do all the things. You really prioritize your life, and make room for what's
Mhm.
truly important. And yeah, someone told me recently, because we spent a long time dwelling on the passing, because he was just like the best guy. But someone said life is for the living, and we got to keep carrying on. So that just really like resonated with me, that life is for the living, and it's
Mhm.
time to get back to like enjoying things. And yeah, it was, people kind of say grief has no timeline, but like after 2 years, you can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it was pretty true for our family. Like, the 2 years was tough. We'd have ups and downs, and good days and bad days, and good weeks and bad weeks. But we really did feel that shift after that 2 years, that like we can start living again, and not feeling so guilty about it.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah.
And the other thing I'll just say about like, I guess, the parts of grief that go untalked about, which was a really big wake up call for me, and what I've tried to help the clients that I've been seeing like surrounding grief, is it it pulls out like some deep dark crevices of people's personality, and the way they respond to certain situations. And so for periods of time, there would be the different dynamics within the family. We have a big family, and people wouldn't get along, and there would be like hurtful things said. And I guess when someone passes away in the family, you think it's going to be this like glorious family reunion, where everybody is there to support each other, and it brings everyone closer. But I would say for a moment there, it pushed us all apart, and nobody ever talks about that. So I was really caught off guard. I was feeling really like alone in that. I was like, how come my family couldn't be there for each other, and like support each other, and we're actually like at odds at some stuff. Um, but then the more I like dived into it, I found out that that actually happens most of the time. Is like people just experience grief and death differently. And so it just ended up bringing out some like darker sides of people. And everything has been like mended now. We did lots of like work with like family therapy, and like personal therapy, and um, just trying to see like other people's perspective and stuff. But I think one of the things I really wish I would have known is kind of like prepare, in a sense that like it could change the dynamics of the family, and have some like tougher moments.
Mhm. Yeah, just being really honest and real about like that experience, like it can really change the dynamics of the family, and not to increase fear of loss and grief even more, but just to have more understanding and acceptance for it. And so
Hmm.
that there can be more of a smoother process within that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah. So what's next for you? I know you mentioned hopefully coming back to working and seeing more clients. How could clients maybe find you if they feel like they could resonate with your services?
Um, you mean like our website?
Mhm. Yeah.
um, yeah, we're located downtown Kelowna. We have 3 offices. So our company is called Next Step Counselling Group. You can hopefully find us on Google when you plug that in. Ranking pretty good these days. Um, yeah, and you can just send a submission form through the website and it goes directly to me, and I always reach out and either place that person with the appropriate therapist, or come September, I'm going to start taking on clients myself again. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm really looking forward to getting back into the office and seeing people and like being more involved face to
Mhm.
face, day to day kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've got lots of like really great ideas for the future, but I have to remember my kids are still really little. So I'm like trying to rein myself in a little bit and like enjoy these years where they're little, because they'll one day be in kindergarten and then I'll have all the time in the world. So not trying to get too ahead of myself. But
Mhm. Definitely. Well, I appreciate all of that honesty. I feel like today we just got so real with your own personal experiences with autism, grief, and loss, and how that's really just like channeled you forward into creating such a wonderful business and helping service for everyone.